You've been doing the deep work. You've been engaged in tons of self-development, including reading endless books, watching tons of relationship content on YouTube, going to the gym, and making changes like you've never made before in your life. All in the hopes that you'll be able to save your relationship, but with getting very little in return when it comes to your wife noticing or caring. And I get it, that could feel insanely hard, lonely, and demotivating. Trust me, I've been there before myself. But what if you're missing the forest for the trees in this situation? What I mean by this is you're so focused on the day-to-day of things and hanging on to any hope that things will change, when in reality, you need to be taking a step back and thinking much bigger picture. Before I go any further, if you're new to this channel, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Mark, and I'm a 37-year-old husband and father with a CPA and MBA. And I'm someone who's let my overly logic-focused and emotionally distant personality almost ruin my relationship. And that's why I created Genuinely Reconnected, to help other logic-focused and emotionally distant men, just like myself, rebuild connection in their marriages. Just a moment ago, I said you need to be thinking much bigger picture and that you shouldn't be as fixated on hoping that suddenly your partner will notice your changes. So, what do I mean by bigger picture? What I mean is the focus here needs to be not on saving your relationship. It needs to be on you becoming the 2.0 version of yourself that your partner is interested in building a new relationship with. Now, that sounds great in theory, but what does that mean at the practical level? It means you need to be making these changes regardless of if you're going to win your partner back or not. Meaning you need to be making these changes for yourself. When you're focused on just winning your wife back and making these changes solely for this reason, it's going to be evident to everyone, especially her. And that's why our channel is called Genuinely Reconnected. Of course, strategies can help, but there needs to be a deep-rooted desire to become a different version of you, as opposed to someone who's just doing these things, whatever they might be, for the sake of saving your relationship. The risk otherwise is your wife can end up seeing you as a showtime husband. If you're not familiar with the term showtime husband, it's a term we at Genuinely Reconnected refer to when someone is putting on an act or putting on a show by doing the things that they think they're supposed to be doing in order to win their partner back, but they actually haven't made any deep-rooted changes to genuinely want to do these things on a regular basis. Instead, whether they realize it or not, they're on some level only temporarily changing for the sake of reconciliation. And although this strategy might work in the short run, it will almost always backfire in the long run. Now, although you might not think you're being a showtime husband and your changes are genuine and long-term, you really have to think about this from your wife's perspective. Chances are she's been in a relationship with you for years at this point, and some of the things she's likely asked you to change, she's probably mentioned multiple times without seeing the efforts she's want from her end. So sometimes, from your wife's perspective, it's hard to grasp that you actually truly changed after years of not making these efforts before. Your wife might also be someone who, although has been frustrated, has put up with her issues with you for years, and if that's the case, this might be one of the first times in her life she feels like she's taken a really strong stance for herself, which she's not going to be willing to adjust on easily unless she sees true, genuine change from your end. In fact, in some scenarios, even if your wife does feel the changes are real and genuine, it can initially result in emotions of anger rather than happiness. And although this might sound surprising to some men, think about it. Your wife can interpret this as, for years, you didn't care to change when it was important for my needs, but now that I'm asking for the relationship to end in separation or divorce, and your needs are at risk, that's when you actually care to change. Many partners might even go the route of trying to test their husbands or boyfriends when they've seen change, because it's hard for them to fully grasp that it's real. Whether consciously or subconsciously, this testing can be a way of confirming if they are emotionally safe with the 2.0 version of you, or if you're just being a showtime husband. And what's important when you might feel like you're being tested is for you not to fall into the old habits of being reactive, defensive, and dismissive. Instead, the 2.0 version of you needs to do your best job possible at responding with empathetic curiosity or cascading curiosity, regardless of what your partner is bringing up. If you're not familiar with the ideas of empathetic curiosity or cascading curiosity, they're both extremely powerful frameworks that can help you engage your partner in much more emotionally effective conversations. If you want to check out a video on that, please hit the link in the description below. Besides applying empathetic curiosity or cascading curiosity when you are engaging with your partner in conversations, you also want to make sure that the 2.0 version of you is doing the fundamentals of effective communication in relationships, such as slowing down your speech, softening your tone to invite further conversation from your wife, making eye contact, and having the right body language. When it comes to the language you might choose to use, when you feel it was actually a meaningful conversation with your partner, sharing things like, "I really enjoyed this moment of being able to connect with you," can go a long way in further rebuilding trust and having your partner open up further with you. Remember, each conversation you have with your partner is a new opportunity to demonstrate the 2.0 version of you and build micro moments of connection. And each micro moment of connection you're going to have is going to slowly stack on top of each other, in turn leading to more potential for reconciliation at the bigger macro level. Now, I do want to make one thing clear with regards to the path towards reconciliation, and that is that it's not always going to be the perfect linear process that you probably hope for it to be. Like most things in life, you might be headed towards the end destination of success, but reaching that end destination of success is going to have lots of peaks and valleys before you actually get there. The peaks being self-development wins or relationship wins with your partner, and the valleys being moments where you feel like things aren't going the way you want them to, or there's been some reconciliation friction with your partner. And I want to help make you realize that this is totally normal. So you need to be able to zoom out and recognize that these peaks and valleys are actually small peaks and valleys that are overall still trending in an upwards direction towards that final destination of success and reconciliation. All that being said, let me also say that if you feel like you're putting an endless effort into changes for your relationship and things still aren't progressing the way you'd like, I get it. This can feel really frustrating and demotivating. What I'd encourage you to do with regards to this is just keep in mind that you're aiming for progress, not perfection. And you need to be looking at this journey from what are the long-term wins as opposed to just the short-term fixes. Think about it this way. Your relationship didn't get to where it's at overnight. It's as if you've walked for miles down into a wooded forest and now you finally realize that this is the wrong path you've been heading in. And so you've decided to turn around and take the first step in the other direction. But if you've been walking in one direction for 5, 10, 15, or maybe even 20 years, you're not going to be able to get out of the forest with just a few steps in the opposite direction. Am I saying it's going to take 5, 10, 15, or 20 years for your connection with your wife to be amazing again? No, but I am saying it's not going to happen overnight. In many instances, it is possible reconciliation could happen somewhat quickly, but for a fully true, lifelong deepened connection to occur, it will take more time. Now, we at Genuinely Reconnected are always trying to back up our statements with research where we can. Let me share some information that could shed more light into why reconciliation can require more effort than some men might think. There was a study done by a researcher by the name of Roy Baumeister and his colleagues called Bad is Stronger Than Good. And I'm sure you're thinking, hey Mark, there's research published all the time that says all sorts of different things. But let me give you some credibility about this specific study by also sharing with you that this specific study has been cited by over 726 publications. For context, most research articles are never cited even once. The big takeaway from this study was the greater impact that bad events have over good ones when it comes to anything from major life events to relationship interactions. In the context of what we're talking about with regards to relationship challenges, it's the idea that one bad relationship interaction isn't counteracted by one good relationship interaction. So if you got into a fight with your wife and said something very hurtful, the idea that later that week you had some great connection doesn't mean the net result is zero and everything is fine. But rather, you need a few good interactions to counter that one bad interaction. And this might sound obvious to some of you watching, but for others, this is quite a shock. It's very easy for an overly logic-focused and emotionally distant man, such as myself or you, to think that one wrong is easily corrected by one right and get frustrated when your wife doesn't fully see things the same way. All this to say, when it comes to building your relationship investment account, keep in mind that it takes a few good love deposits to balance out one love withdrawal. And that's why your wife will not always be so quick to acknowledge your efforts. Now, with that being said, this idea of needing a number of positive experiences or interactions to balance out one negative experience or interaction can still be an extremely powerful paradigm shift for many of the men we work with, as it reduces the frustration you might experience when you don't feel your partner has fully gotten over a negative interaction you may have had with them, even after you've had a subsequent positive interaction that you may have naturally assumed would balance out the previous negative interaction. Now that we've spoken quite a bit about why your wife might not see your efforts, let me switch into talking a little bit about what you can do to change that. Hopefully you've already gotten the message that the reconciliation process is more about long-term consistency than short-term intensity. Once again, this isn't just from the perspective of rebuilding your relationship in a way that works long-term, but it's also from the perspective of you truly becoming the 2.0 version of yourself. A big part of this is to shift from the idea of, hey partner or wife, look over here, look how I've changed, to the idea of, I'll show up for you and those we care about regardless. So what this means day to day is showing up in a way where you're being supportive to your partner and those around you, despite you potentially feeling hurt about the separation or divorce. This shows that you're able to put others' needs before yours, which has likely been a challenge in your marriage for years. This means you want to see every micro and macro moment of engagement with your wife or those connected with your wife as an opportunity. So even if it's a scenario where your wife is saying, hey, I'm not ready to give us a shot again, you can reframe that to an opportunity where you're able to acknowledge her and why she might not feel ready to become close to you, and let her know that when she is in a position where she's ready, you're also ready to be there for her as a 2.0 version of you. Hopefully you're able to see that by acknowledging your wife's feelings, you're already responding differently than the defensive or reactive 1.0 version of you would have responded in a similar scenario. Now, keep in mind, this is a generic statement I've just shared on how you can respond to your wife. In a program, we go much deeper on how to tailor this to your specific situation so that you're not just using something generic that comes across as scripted and low effort from your end. We try and go through a deep reflection process with you so you can truly say something from the heart that's genuine and true to your situation. I also want to emphasize that your actions to be kind and there for your wife and those around you needs to come from a genuine desire to see others happy and grow, regardless of if it benefits you or not. If you can't embody this deep, genuine desire, your changes will only be short-lived, and you'll eventually find yourself in the same spot again, sooner or later. This is why we push such a focus in our program on core changes and not just strategies. So that's everything for this video on why your wife might not be noticing your efforts and what you can do about it. Now, if everything I've said in this video has resonated with you, and you're someone who's serious about rebuilding your relationship with your wife, I want to invite you to check out the link in the description to join our Relationship Rebuild program, where not only do we equip you with what you need to rebuild your relationship, but also offer you the support and accountability of our community, so that you don't have to walk this journey of growth and transformation alone. As a first step, you can book a free advisory call with someone on our team. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you can continue to receive more content from our end on how to genuinely restore connection in your marriage.